Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our monthly live chat with Lynn Acton. I'm going to guess that many of us have had an experience where we plan an outing with our horse, whether it's a group trail ride or a clinic or maybe a fun schooling show, and the day goes totally differently than we had hoped it might. So, owing to the fact that the horse maybe arrives at the location and does its best impersonation of a kite on the end of a string. So Lynn suggested this topic, and I thought it was wonderful because I grapple with it a lot when new horses come for training, or when I would take students to shows or clinics. You're trying to get a lot out of the clinic, but if the horse isn't settling well, what do we do? So when Lynn suggested this, I was like, yes, let's talk about that. I think we all deal with that. So welcome, Lynn.
Hi, Jack. And actually, I think you get credit for suggesting this topic, but we both thought this is a good one. Yeah, so where shall we start? I was thinking maybe we want to start with, there's a couple of things. There's one, what we can do ahead of time to prepare, to hopefully have a horse who's prepared to be in a new place, in a new setting, and has the confidence, has the ability to listen to us, but no matter how carefully we prepare, it doesn't always go that way. And I've been there. I've had bronze come off the trailer, and it's like, yeah, Arabian horse is now 17 hands tall, and everybody's looking at us because they wonder how much more wrong could it go. So maybe we should start with, what do you do in that moment?
Yeah,
No matter how carefully you're prepared.
I think it's, some of us, a good chunks of time can pass between having outings. So I think this is a great place to start because, we get in our routines with our horses. We're working on things, we're taking our lessons, we're doing stuff, but we're not, as you said, maybe necessarily doing things throughout each week that would set them up more for success when we do have these outings, whether that's just going over to the neighbors to ride in that arena or have like going to a full-on show with tons of stimulation. So yeah, perfect place to start, and things for us to think about when we're interacting with our horses. So if you want to roll with it, Lynn, I know you have some ideas to share with us.
Yes, the first thing that I want to do when that's going on, because we know what emotion is going on with that horse. He's not just anxious, he's got a real high level of anxiety, and generally to the point that he's going to have a hard time controlling himself. So what we want to do, we're not going to be able to get him under control. If he can't control himself, we sure can't control him. So we want to get him to a place where we can get his anxiety level down to the point that he can control himself. And that's going to mean no matter how much we might want to be involved in something else in the moment, if we really want to get him back under control and then turn this into a learning experience so we don't have a bigger problem next time, it means get him out of the immediate situation where he's so anxious and get him away from that, where he can calm down to the point that he can actually start thinking again. So we figure any horse that we take to a new venue, we can assume that there's going to be some level of anxiety. And I just wanted to interject that before we carry on further. I'm going to screen share here, and I'm hoping this is going to come up here. Let's see. So now, are you seeing a picture of a horse in a trailer here?
Yep, it worked. So far, so good.
Okay, so that's Brandy, and she looks nice and calm, right? Her feet are still, her lead line's loose, and in fact, I know that's Brandy, and if she's in a trailer, she's anxious. So even if a horse starts out looking calm, we can anticipate some anxiety, because anytime we take them to a new place, there's going to be new things, and they're away from all their own things that they're comfortable with. So back to, once we get there and we know that they're really high and we need to settle them down, I take them to wherever they're going to be calm enough to be able to look at the situation and figure out what's going on. Because when they're really high like that, they're not learning anything. They're not processing anything. So what I want to see is the horse who looks more like, oops, there. Oops. Now there's Bronze. He's on alert. His head's up, his weight's back. He's saying, uh-oh, there's something there I'm worried about. So the goal would be to get the horse to that point, because he is now calm enough. He's not totally outside his comfort zone. He's in a place that he can look and see what's going on. He's not pulling on my lead. You see my lead is loose. And I'm not doing anything. I'm just hanging out there with him. So I've been through this with Bronze. The first time I took him to a show, he came off the trailer and he looked around and he's like, this place is so scary. And he's screaming for reinforcements. So I took him to the far edge of the showgrounds where there was nothing around except a pasture with two horses calmly grazing. But from there, Bronze could see what was going on. And I let him tell me when he was ready to move to a little closer and observe a little bit more. And the lead never had to go tight. And he never got any more excited than this. It was just like, ooh, wow, what's going over here? And then he would say, well, let's take a step forward. I think I want to check this out a little bit. I think I want to check that out a little bit. And gradually we made our way around the showgrounds. And by mid-afternoon, he was calm, completely calm. He was saddled. I was sitting on his back, and we were standing right beside the main ring, watching everybody coming and going, what was happening. And he's like, I got this figured out. And this is really just, this is an old thing, the old scheme of your horse's first day at a show is show and tell. You don't have any plans to compete. You don't have any plans to require anything of him except that he checks things out. So that gave him a chance to convince himself.
Yeah, that's super. Can I interject there, because I wanna highlight this point, Lynn, because I've heard from even trainers I respect that this idea that there's no value in taking a horse to a show unless you're showing them. I've heard some of these old timers say, well, they're not learning what the purpose of being at a show is. And I disagree with that. Like the point that you just made, I've been in that same situation myself. When you don't have a time agenda that you're locked to, when you can just really truly help the horse think that this is not at all exhilarating or scary, there's so much value. And I've seen, like, when people take their young horses to do like in hand classes or breed certification kind of things, I find those outings to be really valuable. The horse learns how to go to a new spot, how to just sort of be there without having you like shampoo them and shove braids in their mane and, put on a funny outfit and go to, you're trying to get to your class, and there's so much extra stress. When you take away all of that, similar to like we've discussed with trailering in the past, if you just throw away the clock and just be there for the horse, I think there's such value in that. So I just wanted to highlight the simplicity and the profound nature of what you're explaining here. So go on with that, please.
Well, that's exactly what I have seen. If you go with an agenda, then you've got some stress on you. And what our horses need in that setting most of all is our calm energy that says, this is not anything we need to worry about. This is all cool. And we can't be calm about it if we've got an agenda and we're stressed. And they really do key off of our energy. And I disagree also with those trainers who say they're not learning anything. In fact, horses learn hugely by watching. And I think Bronze learned a lot as we stood there by the main ring, just watching everybody coming in and out and doing their thing. And so the next time when I took him to a show, we spent about an hour, stroll around, check everything out. There was a change. We had to go to the indoor instead of the outdoor. But what he had figured out is when I go through that in gate, I'm on. And I'm all business, and I'm listening to exactly what Lynn and the announcer say is going to happen next. So I think he learned exactly what he needed to learn, and he learned that he could be calm and focused because he understood what everybody else was doing. He knew the other horses were going to be out of his way, and we could get on with our job.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Do you have questions coming in there, Jack? Because
I
I'll
don't see any questions so far, but whether it's taking a horse and just doing a little, in-hand class, or just hanging out at a showground or a clinic. Clinics to me are sometimes we have such unfair expectations for ourselves and the horse. And again, I think a lot of times it comes down to this time commitment. You've got a scheduled ride time with this clinician. And if you show up and the horse isn't settling well, you kind of feel like, oh God, this lesson's not going to go well. I'm going to waste this person's time, and you're stressed out. And it's, if you didn't have that locked into that time, I don't think either the horse or rider would be so stressed out. You could be like, you know what, it might take me 4 hours to get this horse in a good place. And that's okay. And neither of us to this point have mentioned, just tiring the horse out. We're saying, and I think we'll cover some other strategies that are not just get the horse really tired, because as we've talked about before, that doesn't work in the long run, right? It doesn't lead to these permanent changes where you cultivate a horse that can be more settled and brave when they go to new surroundings. You're kind of just tiring them out for that one day, and then they're in a fatigued kind of shut down state rather than learning how to deal with elements. I'm not saying it's terrible, like if there's a safety issue or something, but it doesn't lead to permanent results, in my opinion. Do you have any thoughts on that, Lynn? I mean, certainly see it happening a lot.
I certainly agree with you. That's just physically tires them out, and then you start at the same place again the next time. And so you really haven't accomplished anything except to show the horse that, gee, every time we go to one of these events, I have to work really hard, and I'm overwhelmed and mentally stressed anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we can do in advance to help a horse be readier for a new situation. Because sometimes we need to just sort of throw them into it. Things happen. But in general, if we plan ahead and have some strategies ahead of time to help them feel more confident in general. And Kim Wallens talked about this in a blog on her website. She said, before I ever take a horse anywhere to an event, she says, I do confidence building exercises at home. And when she says confidence building exercises, she means lots of different things so that the horse develops a sense of, I can cope with new things. And that's what we really want. What I really want to do with a horse, I want, first of all, for the horse to see me as his protector. If something goes wrong, the horse knows Lynn's going to be there for him. I'm not going to be pushing him to do something he's scared to do. Like, yes, you have to stand still because we have to get saddled, because we have to go into the ring because it's now our ride time. I want him to know that when he's nervous, I'm going to help him figure out that everything's safe. And so we want to do two things. One is get the horse to understand that you are the protector, and you're not the person who's going to be pushing him into something scary. And that is actually, if I may say at the moment, that's the whole focus of my book, What Horses Really Want. What they want is to feel safe. And when we make them feel safe, they're prepared to go new places, because that's the horse who looks to you for direction when he's feeling unsure of himself. So if he trusts you, and then we have the communication so that he'll look to us for direction when he's scared, and then we need to have the communication so that we can tell him what we do want him to do when he's scared.
So on that note, Lynn, Sherry writes in with a question. She asks, will you be sharing confidence building exercises?
Well, yes. So let's, and in the blog that I always do as a companion to our talks, I'll have specific references, specific articles and books that people can look at for details on these. But I'll talk generally now about what we can do. It starts with, we've got to have that communication. So step one is we're looking for communication and earning trust rather than control, because as we know, control tends to fall apart when the horse gets anxious. But the trust is always going to be there. So I want the horse to have, I want to have the communication with the horse that basic lead line manners are really, before we take a horse anywhere. This may sound silly, but I've gotten questions from people who are like, my horse is great at shows, except he drags me all over the place. And it turns out they don't have basic lead line manners. They may be able to do all sorts of other moves, but they have to be on the horse's back. So basic lead line manners to me is two things. The horse knows not to crash into me. I mean, that may sound silly, but there's a lot of horses who run into people when they're anxious. So they need to know, stay out of my space unless you're gentle about coming into my space. And then the other piece of it is, don't pull on my lead line. So that means at home, your leading routine should involve the horse walks politely on a loose lead. And you're watching your body language. So when the horse is used to watching your body language and tuning into that, he's also tuning into your emotions. And that makes it easier to convey to him when he's anxious that your emotional state is saying to him, we can be calmer now. So in this picture with Brandy and me, you'll see that my lead line is loose. I'm asking her to turn right. And my body language is saying to her, we're turning right now. And she's already turning. I don't need to push her. I don't need to use any pressure on the lead. So this is the body language that we need to use with the horses to say to them, pay attention to me. And that makes them tune into us. It encourages them to kind of keep us on their radar all the time. They can't just wait for the pressure on the lead. So that gives us an additional level of communication. And once we have this, then we can do all kinds of things with them at home. You can take them for lead line walks, because if they see something scary or exciting, they're not going to be crashing into you or yanking the lead out of your hand. They'll be in that zone. We're not looking for like obedience dog at heel. We're just looking for the horse to stay with you in a sensible sort of way. So I'm looking to see what's So for confidence building, we want to take them for lead line walks and get them out of the ring so they go places, see some things in the world. And this is Brandy. We had a ditch behind our barn, and she wasn't sure that it was okay to cross that ditch. So I just let her stand there and look at it. And in about 5 minutes, Brandy decided that ditch was really quite crossable. And the next thing I knew, she'd hopped across, and then she had to stop and wait for me. But each time the horse is presented with a problem and we let them think it over, they discover they can solve that problem, and they're not going to be pressured by us, and everything's going to be okay. So each success makes the horse more confident about coping with a new situation.
I think these are important points because most students that I observe, the leading of their horse, particularly on a daily basis, it happens like from the paddock to the tying up area, or from the arena back to the stall. It's these small little bits. If you think about it, how often do you lead your horse on any given day, and where are you going typically? It's these small little, and most of the time we might not be even paying attention, even though we should be. We get into such routines. And I think that's why these outings like you're proposing do transfer to when you go somewhere new, because if you show up at a showgrounds or a clinic and you don't have like a leading routine, as you're discussing, I mean, how do we expect the horse is going to pay attention and have good manners on a lead line, if we typically just lead them from the paddock to the cross ties,
Yes.
Very
And the other thing though is that if you each time you lead them, and this is not just like a practice thing, this is the way of life. Every time I lead my horses, I expect them to be paying attention to me, not waiting for tugs on the lead to tell them what they're supposed to do. So even if all you do is lead from the stall to the cross ties or stall to the pasture, that if that lead is loose and the horse is paying attention to you, you're practicing that good body language leading. And now we have, in this picture, that Brandy wasn't sure if this recycle bin was a scary thing. So we went up and she checked it out, and then I opened the lid so she could check it out even further. And every time a horse checks something out and says, oh, well, that's not scary. In fact, that's really sort of interesting. Each one of those helps shift their default view of the world from scary thing, I should leave, to strange thing, let's check it out. And then that makes their whole world view a more positive, optimistic view. We can also, in the ring, have things to play with. If they don't go to play with something by themselves, I've got here this is just a bunch of jugs, tie rope. And my friend Melody brought her Dartmoor pony Opie over to play. And all I'm doing is walking along, dragging these things that are making kind of a funny noise. So Opie got interested and followed along. In addition to doing, and before I forget, horse agility is a great way to build confidence. As the horse is set up, purpose is for the horse and person to have better communication, and for the horse to use investigative behavior to get comfortable with the obstacles, and then watch the person's communication. So it's all positive, and it's all about success for the horse. But even without doing something that formal, any sort of obstacles that we play with give the horse some additional confidence building. Then the next step is to take the horse on short outings that are simple and fun. And this is what's happening in this picture. When Melody gets a new pony, she brings the new pony over here for one of their first outings. Is a fun visit to my place. It's a short trailer trip. They get off the trailer, they come in my arena. They're not required to do anything, but they have the option to play with things. And if they aren't sure that they really have anything fun to play with, I show them. I took a cone and turned it upside down and looked inside, and he decided that maybe he better look inside the cone too. So I'm modeling for him, check things out when you're not sure about them.
And the important thing, just to remind people, I'm assuming, Lynn, is that it's not about the cone. It's not about teaching this horse to not be afraid of cones or tarps or whatever. It's about helping them engage their mind and be curious and responsive rather than reactive and scared of any stimulus. But it's not about the specific object per se.
That's exactly right. It's about the process of using their curiosity, because curiosity is a really powerful, positive emotion. When we engage their curiosity, then they're in learning mode. A fearful horse is not in a learning mode, but a curious horse is learning, and then he's processing what he's learning. There's a lot of generalizing that goes on. So some of what Opie will be generalizing here is, well, I see funny things laying around an arena, but all the funny things I've seen before have all turned out to be fun toys. So probably if I see something new, funny in the arena, I don't need to worry about it. So the goal then is to make each outing as low stress and calm and positive as possible, so that the horse thinks, well, when I'm getting in the trailer, I'm going to go someplace nice, and fun things will happen, and everything will be safe, and then I'll come home again.
Just like we want it to be.
Well, yes. My farrier used to show shires, and he said that to avoid early weeding, they simply took the foals along with the mothers when they took them to shows. So what these foals were learning was incredible. Get in the trailer, go to this place, this busy place, all this stuff happening around here. So they have no reason to be frightened. So by the time they were old enough to be going to shows by themselves, it was like, yeah, this is just what we do. No problem.
Yeah, I think those early outings can be wonderful. But even if we end up with a horse that maybe has been on the same property for a decade, we can create novel learning opportunities like you're discussing, which I think does set them up for success when you take them to a new place. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to walk off the trailer and be calm as a cucumber. They might be really tense, but to your point, if they're tense, but they know that you're not going to lead them into harm and they're not dragging you around or walking over the top of you, then you can work with them productively to help them, settle in and take the time it takes. And that's when I think people are far more successful. That's how it's always worked in my world anyway.
Oh yeah, and then that's why there is that old tradition of make your horse's first show day basically just show and tell.
Hmm.
And it would be nice if you could do the same sort of thing with a clinic, but any sort of event that you take a horse to, again, they'll generalize general situations like, well, we went to this place and there were a whole lot of other horses and a whole bunch of people and a lot of stuff happening. But hey, I got to hang out and eat grass and eat hay and get a few extra treats and walk around and look at stuff. And it was all cool. So the next time they come back, it's like, oh, this time I'm saddled and I'm in the ring. Well, I watched what the other horses did last time, so I've got a pretty good idea what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I love it. I have kind of been through a lot of the steps you're discussing right now with the young horse. Young horses are so fun. They're such blank slates, and I have this young Arabian who just came for training 2.5 months ago. And he's never, been to a new place and had training. It's all very new. And so when he arrived, he was he was pretty electric. He was pretty reactive, pretty reactive. And he got some snarky comments from some of the barn ladies. They're like, that horse is crazy. I said, no, he's not. He's just young. He doesn't know, every little thing, noise or sight or sound would kind of, shoot him off into the stratosphere. But he's really made huge progress. And now he might, raise his neck like that picture of bronze you showed, but then he knows how to kind of regulate himself and channel himself and check something out instead of just like freaking out and blowing up. And it's been really gratifying. And today, some of us can, we just want to get on and ride and do our thing. And if there's a lot of distraction or it's a windy day or whatever, we can be tempted to be like, oh, I'm scrapping it. Well, this isn't going to be good. But increasingly, I try to embrace those opportunities. And so today was one of those days where it's just mass chaos at the barn. There's all this construction going on and big dump trucks backing up and tractors and backhoes. And I led this little guy past the backhoe and he was calm as could be. And then he saw these two people taking a lunch break under the tree and his little neck went up, and he was like, whoa, what's that? And then immediately he wanted to walk towards them and check them out. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's check this out. And so he's making those little steps to become super confident. And it's really gratifying. And I know those taking that time sets this horse up for success, even though some days you're hot and tired and like, oh my God, I just don't even want to deal with this right now,
Yeah, but that's awesome to hear about, because to me the fact that he wanted to go toward the people, that to me is like a whole shift in the horse's attitude about the world. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is something new. This is a good thing. And so that's his whole foundation for being able to be braver in the future. And now, how long have you had him there, and how long did it take to go from higher than a kite to let's go visit these people?
He's been here about 2.5 months, but I would say he's really made progress in the last 2 weeks in terms of, I mean, he's a good boy, but in terms of responding to situations rather than just reacting. It used to be that he'd see a horse ride past on the road in front of our property and just become completely unhinged. Like, he just didn't know what to do with
Oh,
it. He's kind of like, am I supposed to be over there with that horse? Or like, should I go run over and join that herd? Are they coming into my herd? Like, what's happening here? you know and now he's learned that, oh, I noticed that horse, but I'm here with you and we're doing this task, and okay, I'll just keep doing my task. And I know
mhm.
that seems quite simple, but the more I learn about horses, the more I realize it's those shifts that are actually very strong and lead to a wonderful connection and trainability with the horse. They're so important.
Oh yeah, that's profound. If he'd gone to a trainer who felt that he needed to get busy and do his job the first week that he was there, that could easily have set him up for a lifetime. Don't you think of his owner always being anxious about, can I ride this horse? What's he going to do? But you've set him up for a lifetime of confidence. where his whoever else is riding him is going to be able to feel comfortable riding and handling him. Those shifts don't happen overnight.
No, no. Yeah, young horses are, yeah, they're fun. They're fun. And putting all this into action is a pleasure. Like I say, I kind of seek out these little experiences of distraction because they do make the horse more trainable in his dressage training as well. Because if they're freaking out over something, you're not getting any dressage training done. So it's all connected. And I think
Yes.
Zoom's giving me that annoying warning that we only have 10 minutes left, but so I wanted to, I think as we close up, I wanted to underscore what you've covered today and what you're helping us think about is not to take a let's see how this goes approach when you're leaving the property. And I don't mean to be too cheeky, but I do think I certainly used to do this. Like I'd have a horse in training. We're going to take it to a show, its first show. And we put it on the trailer and kind of be like, well, okay, we'll see how this goes. And some of them would just sort of naturally be less exhilarated than others, but some were truly a train wreck. And I think what we've covered today is there are things that we can do to set the horse up for success and plan outings that make sense leading up to something that really counts, like a show where maybe you've spent a lot of money, for example. So this picture is my own. Well, the gray horse is a training horse.
That's yours.
And then there's my horse on the left. And so commonly when I get a new horse in for training, I do like to put them next to Corazon, my horse, because he's a good influence on them. He can sometimes teach them unsavory behaviors, but generally he's a good mentor sort. But I remember so many years ago watching a John Lyons video of so long ago. I think this is pre-YouTube. And he was talking about how to handle, like, I don't know if any of you have had the experience where you go to a new venue in the trailer with another horse. I've certainly seen this happen. And they sort of bond in the trailer, right? Your horse and this other horse. And you get to the venue and they just like have to be with each other to feel safe. And then if you separate them, there's all this chaotic whinnying and stress. And one of the things that I learned to do that has helped a lot is, I remember John Lyons making the point when you arrive at the venue and you either tie up at the trailer or you put your horse in the stall, wherever they're going to be. When you go to take that horse out and wander around the showgrounds or wherever you are, don't get attached to being like, okay, I'm going to go out and do my ride or my 30-minute whatever. He said, maybe just walk it away 5 minutes away from the stall until the horse calms down and settles down for a little bit, like enough to acknowledge that calmness. And then you take them back to their safety, which is that other horse they've glued themselves to. And then you would just repeat that over the duration of the day. And the horse very calmly and stress-free learns to go further and further and further away from that horse. They're not yelling their head off. And so that's how in the last several years that I showed, I would handle the show. I would just take the horse out for a walk for 5 or 10 minutes and bring it back. And then maybe repeat that every 30 minutes, maybe every hour, whatever, instead of lunging them into a frothy hot mess. Because as I found, I would typically have to do the same thing the next day, right? More lunging to the point of fatigue. And then the horse is sore and they're not moving well and you're getting crummy marks on your dressage test anyway. So that was a helpful tip for horses that get really bonded to each other when you take them to a new venue. Did you have anything like that you wanted to add, Lynn?
No, I think that that's really important. And you've had the experience of doing that and making it successful. And I think you can do that at home too, when you have two horses who get bonded with each other, taking them away a little bit at a time, right?
Right.
And
Instead of just being like, we're going to stay away until you get over this. I used to take that approach and it doesn't really work. So you're trying to show them, maybe you only make it to the end of the driveway and you come back and then you repeat that, but maybe you go 10 meters further. Right. And then the next time, maybe you go a quarter mile down the road and come back. And it really does work that way. Couple comments have come in here before we get cut off because Zoom is kind of abrupt when that happens. Somebody has a question about moving to a new barn that's in a new state and any pointers on that. And actually, I think, Lynn, you have an article on your website kind of about that, don't you?
I do. It's called New Horse Success. It's on my Lynn Acton website, and it goes into some details, which we didn't have a chance to get to. But yeah, there's a lot that you can do to help a horse settle into a new place. But the most important thing is to recognize he's lost everything. He's in a state of high anxiety. The thing he needs most is to know that you're his protector. So think about being his protector and helping him feel safe. And everything that you can do to make that happen is going to get your bond off to a quick start and help him settle in.
Yeah, so check out that article on Lynn's website. And then Sherry was wondering, where can she get the recording? It'll be on my YouTube channel later this evening, and Lynn will also post the link to the video recording on her social media channels as well. So
My Facebook page, right?
And we'll include the link to Lynn's little article blog write-up that she always does for us. Thank you. So if there's any last questions, we have 2 minutes left. You can drop them into the chat here. Otherwise, I guess I would ask, do you have any outings planned, Lynn, while we're talking? I've been thinking about maybe getting out on a horse camping trip now that it finally turned summer out here. So maybe that might happen. How about you? Do you have anything coming up?
No, actually, I don't. But a horse camping trip sounds very exciting. I'm sure you have some cool places to go out there.
Yeah, we do. We've got some good horse campgrounds and some fun trails. So it's really nice. It's funny. I didn't grow up horse camping. I grew up in New England, and I always thought that camping out with your horses just seemed like really adventurous. I don't know, like it was the Wild West or something. And I actually find that I find that it's been less stressful for horses than like taking them to a horse show or something.
I imagine it is.
I thought it was gonna be all fireworks and drama, and I was like, actually, it's a pretty natural setting. Why did I think this was gonna be so crazy?
Well, and you get to go on trail rides, which is way less stressful than going to a show.
True. It's very true. So anyway, well, thank you, Lynn, and we'll get this recording out tonight, and stay tuned for the link for next month's topic. And listeners, feel free to submit a topic that you'd like Lynn and I to cover if you've got something in mind.